Hey bees, I'm Marie from Humblebee and Me, and today we are making some perfect for autumn pumpkin spice scrub nuggets. So these little things are like a combination of a bath melt and an emulsified sugar scrub, and they're really, really neat. I've designed these nuggets to be quite soft so that when you use them, they immediately melt and then self-emulsify with any water on your skin. So if you're taking a shower or taking a bath, these things are just divine. You'll sort of rub them along your skin and you'll immediately see them turn into lotion as they self-emulsify with the water on your skin, and then you can just sort of buff away any dead skin with the sugar that's in there and sort of rinse it off, and you're just left with beautiful, super soft skin that smells like pie. I've included 2 different emulsifiers in these scrub nuggets to ensure that they really emulsify quickly and well with your water. So there's a complete emulsifying wax and a solubilizer. There are different options for this, and if you want information about substitutions or alternatives, please check the associated blog post. I have a giant bulleted list at the bottom of the written blog post of all kinds of different substitutions and alternatives, so that if you don't have something, check there. Pretty much all of the recipes that you find on this YouTube channel have associated blog posts with that type of information. So please check the description box below and click through to the blog, because there's a lot of stuff that I can communicate much, much better in writing than I can in videos, and especially links to the ingredients or links to sort of FAQ articles that I think you will find useful as supplemental information. Because of how soft these little scrub nuggets are, and because they don't have preservatives, they are designed to be a one and done single-use thing. So I divided this batch into 4. Something like an ice cube tray is a pretty good size, but definitely don't just pour the whole batch into one bar unless you're planning on kind of cutting it up into pieces, because as soon as this thing gets wet and you start handling it, it's just going to completely like melt and fall apart, which is exactly what we want it to do. But it makes it sort of pretty awful if you're trying to like use just like a little bit of it and then put it aside for later. And then also, again, because it doesn't have any preservatives in it, that's just not a good idea safety-wise. So make sure you're choosing smallish molds, or you can even choose quite small molds and then use several of them in your bath, but definitely don't just go like whole hog, because that's not going to be great. Our scent blend is classic pumpkin spice. So of course there's cinnamon and cloves and a nice warm base of vanilla. There is some ginger, and make sure you're getting CO2 distilled ginger. You can get steam distilled ginger and it's cheaper. So I think a lot of people do exactly what I did, and we're like, oh, what can the difference be? I will buy the steam distilled, for it is cheaper. And then you get it and you're like, that is revolting. The steam distilled stuff is very, very disappointing if you've ever actually interacted with ginger and enjoy the way it smells. So if you're going to get ginger, get the CO2 stuff or don't bother. And then there's also some nutmeg, which is optional, because I know some people have very strong opinions about the inclusion of nutmeg and pumpkin spice sort of one way or the other. So I'm going to stay out of that debate. It is optional. Do whatever your nose desires. The process for these is delightfully simple. We'll just kind of melt together the ingredients that need to be melted, and then as they cool, we'll add our cool down ingredients. So that's our vitamin E, our essential oils, and then of course the sugar. And once the mixture can sort of sustain the weight of the sugar, once it's viscous enough to do that, we'll pop it in some molds, pop it in the fridge to chill, and that is pretty much it. So come on, let's go make some pumpkin scrub nuggets. We're going to begin by combining our ingredients that we're going to be melting together. So we've got 5 grams of Polawax. You could also use emulsifying wax NF instead. 4 grams of Polysorbate 80 or Olive M 300, not 1000. 27 grams of fractionated coconut oil or any other sort of relatively lightweight, inexpensive carrier oil you have. 9 grams of stearic acid, 2.5 grams of cetyl alcohol, and 1.5 grams of a brown clay. So this is actually red kaolin clay, but you could also use sort of French red clay or any other clay that's kind of a warm, autumny brown. So we'll just sort of get that all stirred together here. And then we're going to pop this in a water bath to melt it through. So this is just a small flat bottom saucepan with about 1 inch or 3 centimeters of water in it, and a little silicone drink trivet or coaster to keep things insulated. And I'm just going to pop that in there and put this on the stovetop over medium heat until everything is melted through, which will take about 20 to 30 minutes. Once everything has melted, you can remove the measuring cup from the heat. So the thing that we're looking for now is for this to gain a bit of viscosity and cool down so that it can actually support the weight of both the clay and the sugar. So to speed this along, I've got an ice bath here. So we'll just sort of go back and forth a little bit to help this cool down. That's already starting to gain some viscosity, so we can add our cool down ingredients. So we'll start with our essential oils. So we need sort of 2 blobs of benzoin resinoid, and you will see why I call it a blob when these start to come out. All right, so you can see this is extremely viscous. 5 drops of cinnamon bark, 2 drops of clove, 2 drops of CO2 distilled ginger root. And if you can't find CO2 distilled, just don't use the ginger because the steam distilled stuff smells like old socks. And then 1 drop of nutmeg, and the nutmeg is optional. And we're adding 1/4 gram of vitamin E approximately, which I have previously weighed out to be about 2 drops. And for the scrubby part, we have 35 grams of granulated white sugar. So the addition of especially the sugar has really helped this sort of drop temperature and start to thicken up, but I would like it to be a little bit thicker before we put it in our mold. So I'm going to do a little bit more work in the ice bath, but sort of for reference, this is the mold, and so this is actually just the 1/2 of one of those spherical molds. So there's another top that I can pop in, but the top has holes in it, so it really only works as a top, but the bottom works great for doing little sort of like half dome molding. So I've got the mold on a plate here so that I can easily move the whole concoction to the fridge when I am done pouring, because as you can see, it's starting to thicken up quite a lot here. So I need to pour quite quickly. I'm just trying to get those blobs to not be too blobby. Perhaps not the prettiest, but they'll definitely work. They'll smell great, and the underside is nice and smooth. So I'm going to go pop this in the fridge now to fully set up. All right, these have all set up, so we can pop them out of our mold. And remember, they do have a really low melting point, so be careful to handle them as little as possible, because they'll start melting quite readily if you start handling them. So here's one of the little nuggets in action. I cut it in half because I definitely don't need a full one just for my hands here. But you can really, it really is very soft. As I just kind of rub it on my hands there, you can see it already starts to come off on my skin. So definitely don't store these somewhere warm, and definitely don't handle them too much. But you can see that as I rub it into my sort of wet hand here, you can see it immediately starts to emulsify and create lotion, basically. So you can scrubby, and you can see there's plenty of lovely emulsified oils as it turns into lotion on your skin, and then you can kind of rinse off the excess and the sugar, and you're left with lovely, super hydrated skin. Obviously, this works much better in a bath or the shower, but that gives you a general idea, and you can see just how quickly and beautifully it emulsifies with water, and it's just oh so lovely. You just made some pumpkin spice scrub nuggets. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and check the description box below for the full written recipe with amounts in both metric and imperial, and the links to this recipe on my blog, where I've got a great big list of information on substitutions and other information for you all written out, so it's nice and easy to refer to. See you next time!